My name is Akiva Ball. Thank you. Guess where we are? We're not at home. We're actually at the Aguda, and we're thrilled to be here today. Today is Rosh Chodesh Adar, right?
Yes.
You
Good
imagine
Chodesh, Akiva.
Good Chodesh. Could you imagine? It's already 2 weeks from Tu
2 weeks
B'Shvat.
from Tu B'Shvat.
And we said that every 2 weeks there's another station
Right.
all the way up to Shavuos, and we are another 2 weeks.
And looking forward for another 2
2
weeks.
for Purim Katan.
Purim Katan.
Ein Bain Purim Katan LePurim.
Ein Bim Adar Aleph LaAdar
Okay,
Beis.
thank you. Ella.
Ella.
Kriyas Matanas Lavyon,
Kriyas HaMegillah. Kriyas HaMegillah Matanas Lavyoin V'Lvad. That is correct.
Right. Of course, we will investigate that in 2 weeks' time. We do have another show for you in 2 weeks, and it's called the Haiduvat Kush with Shlomi Zions.
Oh.
And we look forward to that. But let's focus on Halaylah
Wandering
tonight, the Wandering Jew and the Wandering Jew, both of them. And we look forward to that in 2 weeks' time. I want to first share with you, of course, the sponsors. If I could ask just to be spotlighted alone, the sponsors for today are, as you can see, the Skate Garage. How many people have gone skating from the last time that we were here? I hope you got your skates sharpened at the Skate Garage. And of course, Bubby's Bagels and the Eretz Yisrael Aquakef, the most fun on the beach since the invention of sand. If you're in Eretz Yisrael, go visit Aquakef on the shores of the Kinneret. I promise you, bring your family with you. You'll have an amazing time. I see the kids are on here. We let the chat button go, but I have to tell you, boys, if it's the same as last time, then we will change it and we will stop the chat if it gets out of hand. Now, I promised you last week at the end a poll, and we didn't have a chance to do it. So we're going to start with a poll, and hopefully you remember. Oh, I still can't be able to log in. Right now, there's 10 boys on.
How many boys were here from last time?
Now, remember, even if you weren't, you should be able to answer it. So if they're not here, I'm going to find out why we can't get on to find the poll. We should be able to do it. But meanwhile, let's go to the schedule. One more sponsor, by the way, Torah Live. That's, of course, the story with Josh.
Oh,
okay.
Torah
They're a
Live
sponsor as well. Toronto Kosher and Supercam. I have to tell you that last year, Supercam sponsored a beautiful hockey game at the end of the 3 weeks. Remember the
Yeah.
board game? They said they would do so again. So keep tuning in for that new hockey game. We hope to do it at the end of week 3. That would be a nice Mishloach Manas for somebody to get the hockey
That would
game.
be nice.
And if not, we will do it on at the end of next week. If not, we'll be Rosh Chodesh Adar Beis.
Ace.
Okay, let's go through the schedule we have for you. You heard the song. We did the introduction. I'm going to try to get the poll from Tu B'Shvat. If not, we're going to do in Hilchas right now, Hilchas Tu B'Shvat. I'm sorry. The poll was from Tu B'Shvat last week. Halachos of Kiddush levana with Rabbi Philip. We'll then spin for some Bubby's Bagels, followed with a special video. Since it's Rosh Chodesh, there's nothing. It's about the new moon. We're going to talk about the landing on the moon from 1969. 1969, do you remember it? No, I don't remember. I vaguely remember it. We then have an interview with special guest Rabbi Daniel Finkel, who will explain exactly what happens when there's a new Molad. And we're going to spin for a special Gemara, copy of a Gemara of Rosh Hashanah, brand new. The
Art
boys,
scroll?
Art Scroll Gemara, I have it right here. And by the way, in case for those who don't believe it,
Ooh.
look at this. Can I get a camera right here on this one? There it is from 2 weeks ago. Signed. Bracha v'atzlacha, signed by Eli Kligman, right there.
Wow, amazing.
You make that up right here. So
This is
tonight's show is about the big ball in the sky.
This is a real
Real baseball.
Real
baseball. Rawlings, right here. So we have 3 of them, and we will be sending it out this week. So right now we're going to go to the halachos, and hopefully we'll be able to get the polls on again. So bear with me, Rabbi Philip. In one moment, I will show that to you.
Oh,
How's
amazing.
that? Is that good?
That's excellent.
Okay, here you go. Move this out of the way for you. There you go. So you can see here, and I will scroll as we go along.
Okay, excellent. So, Chodesh Tov u'Mavarach, a good Chodesh, everyone. Nice to see everyone. I don't actually get to see everyone, but it's nice to see Yehuda Krieger. I don't really see it, but he has a big smile under his funny face, which is good. Nice that it's Purim. It's Chodesh Adar. So it's good. It's good to see everyone. So we're going to start and we'll discuss a little bit of Kiddush levana. Kiddush levana, I'm sure. I wonder how many boys actually, boys should be saying Kiddush levana. Everyone should be saying Kiddush levana. And I think we're going to point out a couple of very interesting ideas and interesting halachos or something we can learn from Kiddush levana. Now, first, obviously, is what is Kiddush levana? And there's a very few interesting things. I'm sure one of the interesting things that everyone is aware of is something like even saying Shalom Aleichem. Everyone goes over to others, Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, right? You go over to Shalom Aleichem, what's with the Shalom Aleichem? And then there's also something very interesting. We're talking about Chodesh, Rosh Chodesh Adar. Chodesh Adar is the time of Simcha, time of joy. It's a time of a festive time. Now the question is, what does the connection of dancing have to do with Kiddush Levana? I wonder. So we're going to go through over here these halachas and see if we can learn something today. So we're going to start something which is applicable to Shabbos. In Hilchas Shabbos, there's a very interesting halacha. The halacha is the Shulchan Aruch tells us, and the Rambam, that it's forbidden to dance and clap on Shabbos. Clap your hands on Shabbos. Wow, really? Why is that so? This is based on a Mishnah in the Masechtas Beya. It's a Mishnah in Masechtas Beya that says, fixing an instrument on Yontiv and Shabbos is considered one of the 39 malachas. That is usher, it's prohibited. The malacha under which malacha does it fall on? It falls under the malacha of Makkah b'patish, the final blow that you would strike with your tool, with your hammer. That would be considered Makkah b'patish. So therefore, fixing an instrument on Shabbos is a malacha. The use of instruments, meaning to use and play an instrument on Shabbos and Yom Tov, is also forbidden. Why? That's because Chachamim taught us, tells us we're concerned that if one of the instruments would break, one might come to fix it. We find that very similar halacha is also by riding a bike. There's no isser of riding a bike, but Chachamim were afraid that if your chain breaks, you might come to fix it. Okay, so therefore, you can't play any instruments on Shabbos and Yom Tov. And what does that have to do with clapping? So the Mishnah tells us rules that it's forbidden to clap one's hands or dance in Yom Tov and Shabbos. The Gemara explains why is that so? Since dancing and clapping were generally done in accompaniment of musical instruments. It was accompanied together with musical instruments. These actions were forbidden as well in order to prevent a person from coming to fix a musical instrument. So when you were clapping and dancing and enjoying, and someone might have had an instrument and it would break, they would have to fix it. So Chachamim, the Mishnah tells us, don't do this. Fascinating. But one I'm sure the children are wondering. Yehuda Goldreich is wondering, I don't understand. Who fixes instruments today? I don't get it. So you're right. The Tosfos writes that this decree, this gezerah of Chazal, only applied when they were experts in fixing musical instruments. But it wouldn't happen, but it wouldn't apply to us and nowadays, since we're not experts in that area. So it makes it easier. So therefore, the Ramah, Reb Moshe Israelis of Krakow, where the Ashkenazim follow, writes that the minhag is to be lenient. What? To clap on Shabbos and dance. On the opinion of the Tosfos, based on what the Tosfos just said, that there's no prohibition anymore to coming to fix a musical instrument. The implication of the Ramah is, and the idea is better not to inform people of this prohibition. Why not? Because it's better to only violate it b'shoigeg, by mistake, unintentionally, and not b'mezid it deliberately. So therefore, let it be as is. So it's very interesting. So again, Shulchan Aruch says that one should not be dancing and clapping, because that's what the Mishnah tells us and Chazal tells us. On the other hand, the Rama said that just like this Tosfos mentioned, that it is not applicable in nowadays because we're not experts in fixing. Another interesting thing is it's permissible to dance on Simchas Torah. We all dance on Simchas Torah. I'm sure some boys are wondering. Maybe Yaakov Zlotnik is wondering. Well, I don't know. So we all dance on Simchas Torah.
For sure, line up for candies.
Definitely, yeah. But that you're allowed to do anytime, side Yom Kippur. But the answer is because you're allowed to dance for the honor of a Torah. The honor for the kavod Torah, for the honor of a mitzvah, as a matter of fact, you're allowed to. And it's very interesting. So here you see there's a picture I found in many Hasidic circles. The custom is to permit dancing on Shabbos and Yom Tov. Why? So the Munkacher Rebbe, the monk was a tremendous Talmid Chacham. That's the picture over there. Right beside is the Minchas Elazar. His name was the Minchas Elazar Rabinowitz. That's a picture of him. He was nifter in 1937. Explains that dancing and singing is permitted for those who are engrossed in a simcha of a mitzvah, in simcha of Shabbos, a simcha of Yom Tov, which you spring into action to dancing. Since it is considered a mitzvah, you're allowed to do it. Very fascinating, no? So therefore, that's why in Hasidic circles, when it comes to l'chadoidi, they'll dance a little bit or sing or clap. But what does it all have to do with Kiddush levana? That's the question. What does it have to do with Kiddush levana? You're wondering. So good, dancing, clapping, Shabbos, what's the connection? There are a few answers to this question. We're all going to offer an answer from, as referred to, the Chafetz Chaim. He was called the Kohen Hagadol of Radin. The great Kohen, the Kohen Hagadol. We all know the Kohen of Radin, the Chafetz Chaim, and he answers something very interesting that I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but after we finish learning, you're going to be a little more educated. And it says like this: the Shulchan Aruch writes in Hilchos the Siman on Rosh Chodesh says that we make Kiddush levana on Motzei Shabbos and Motzei Yom Tov. We're all familiar, right? After Motzei Shabbos, we all go outside when it's once a month, or if the moon is out, if it's not cloudy, and then we make Kiddush levana. Why? For then we are in a good mood, and we're wearing our Shabbos clothes. Correct? We're all wearing our Shabbos clothes. But I'm sure you're all wondering, if so, why don't we make Kiddush levana on Friday night? Did you ever see someone make Kiddush levana on Friday night? I don't think anyone make Kiddush levana on Friday night. Why not? We're wearing our Shabbos clothes. We're in a good mood. It's the weekend. We just finished our hard work in yeshiva and cheder and ready to enjoy Shabbos. So the Chafetz Chaim answers as follows. Listen to what we just learned. He writes that since to fulfill the mitzvah of Kiddush levana, besimcha, with the joy and dance. And dance. And as a customary, as it brought down, the Ramah writes the minhag is to dance after Kiddush levana. And I'm always surprised. Why was this minhag, by the way, I was wondering, why is this minhag not so, fulfilled to the fullest? It should be. I really don't know. But a lot of places they do. And like I said, specifically in Hasidic circles, but it should be. But it's a minhag, it should be done with joy and dance. So says the Chafetz Chaim, since really in essence you're supposed to be joyful and happy and dance, dancing is asur, prohibited on Shabbos. So you can't dance on Shabbos. But the Chafetz Chaim, however, questions his own response. And he asks, we just learned that you can dance on Simchas Torah. So if you can dance on Simchas Torah because it's a joy, in honor of Torah, why can't we dance in honor of the mitzvah? As we know you're allowed to honor. For the honor of a mitzvah, the sake of a mitzvah, the honor of Torah is permissible. Explains the Chafetz Chaim, that is correct. When it comes regarding to mitzvahs that cannot be postponed, like Simchas Torah, you can't push off Simchas Torah. But Kiddush levana can be done on a different night. But it's something amazing. So we learned something fascinating. You have to be joyful and simcha and dance, and we don't do it Friday night because we shouldn't be dancing. And since we shouldn't be dancing, we can postpone it, so we push it off. So we learn that Kiddush levana has to be done with great joy and excitement. So the next time, first of all, you say Kiddush levana, do it with excitement. If you can dance, grab someone's hand and start dancing. They won't, if they don't know why, they'll look at you a little bit funny. You'll tell them why. So it's amazing. You see this, so it's very important to dance. That's what it is. But the question that you're all wondering, why? What's the great joy of excitement about Kiddush levana? So we know it's a mitzvah. So every mitzvah should we be dancing and enjoy. But there's something significant and very powerful and something exciting about Kiddush levana. What is that about? It's a great question. It's a great question. Right? So are you following? Or did some boys space out?
They're all here.
Oh, they're all here. No one's
here.
spaced out.
No one's
It's a
spaced out.
time to space out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is a time to space out.
No.
So it is anyways.
Time to space in.
Space
no
in.
pun intended.
So the Gemara in Sanhedrin tells us, listen to this, Kindle, this phenomenal Gemara. The Rab Abba Bar Chanina, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, that the blessing of the moon in its time is comparable to greeting the Shechina. The Shechina means divine presence, HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. Now, I want to point out, not that we don't daven to the moon, God forbid. We daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we bless the moon, in its time because compared to greeting the Shekhinah. So the Rabbeinu Yoina explains that through the moon cycle, as will soon be explained by Rabbi Finkel, one can see the wonders and strength of Hashem. Morabu Masecha Hashem, as you see on your screen, the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which makes a person more aware of Hashem's presence. This added awareness is comparable to the greeting of Shekhinah. When we recognize, anytime you go on vacation, we just come, some boys went away or didn't, or you look out the window. You just stare at night, the stars and the moon, whatever it is, the wonderful creation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It means we come close as greeting the Shekhinah. Therefore, when one makes note of the moon cycle, it is benefiting to make a bracha. You make a bracha similar to the brachas recited when viewing other wonders of creation of Hashem. Any boys who did travel through, right? We go through Niagara. So you stop and you make a bracha, oisei maaseh bereishis, of the wonders of Hashem. The Aruch HaShulchan adds that even though the wonders and strength of Hashem are visible in all creation, right? So won't we make brachas on every? We should try to make brachas. But why particularly on the moon? I'll ask maybe the sun. It is more befitting to make a bracha on the moon because it is the closest of the celestial bodies of one of the planets and had a noticeable cycle. And it's noticeable. It's something that is very close to us. And another very significant reason, furthermore, the moon metaphorically is compared, represents Am Yisrael, Klal Yisrael, we're all compared to the moon. The first mitzvah that was given to Am Yisrael is Chodesh Hazeh lachem, the moon, and its future renewal. Just as the renewal every month of the moon comes up, you see it when it's full, and then it disappears slowly. So too Am Yisrael, likewise Am Yisrael, are destined to be renewed. And it's just such an insignificant lesson. Sometimes a person feels he's just not there. You should always know there's always going to be a light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. There's always going to be a time when it renews, it comes up again. It will shine again. Thus, greeting Shekhinah, so this is what we learned. Thus, greeting the Shekhinah should only be done. So what do we learn so far, Kinala? We learn that, what do we see? We learn that it has to be done with a good spirit. As the Gemara states in Masechta Shabbos, that the Shekhinah, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the divine presence, does not come to rest upon a person through gloom, when he's morbid and he's down, or laziness, but only through joy associated with a mitzvah. The simcha tamid. A yid has to always, that's why we have the Taryag mitzvahs, that we constantly do mitzvahs, because we're always to be in a state of joy and state of happiness. For this reason, it is customary not to bench the moon when a person is in a state of mourning, when he's sad, he's not happy. During the 9 days, for instance, Rosh Chodesh Av through Tisha B'Av. So fascinating what we learned. Why is it joy, a time of dancing, a time of joy? We're good? Yeah? A time of joy is because it says if we're mekabel, we greet the Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Shekhinah itself. But I do want to point out something very interesting, Kinelach. I don't know if you ever made Kiddush levana on Shabbos, but it's very interesting. I'm concluding over here. It says, since the main reason is based on Kabbalah, why we don't do it on Shabbos, the Mishnah Berurah, the Chavetz Chaim writes that if, let's say, your last opportunity falls out on Shabbos, then you should say Kiddush levana on Shabbos. You should say Kiddush levana on Shabbos. Don't miss that opportunity. So it's brought down, and the Mishnah Berurah brings down that if your only opportunity, let's say, it's about, because again, you can't make a bracha only while the moon is still rising, right? When it's still before it's in full appearance, right? Up until that point, which the mid of the month, right before the mid of the month, mid-month. So therefore, you're allowed to say it on Shabbos. Now, I don't want to, it's getting long. We're good? Can we go?
2 more minutes.
2 more minutes. So I think we're clear. So we learned the joy, being happy in simcha, and that's why we shouldn't. In essence, we don't do it on Shabbos. It's brought down because we don't want to mix a simcha and a simcha. Shabbos is a joy, and this is a joy. Now, but there's also that interesting minhag that we have. The minhag is that we greeted other people. Shalom aleichem, shalom aleichem. What's the shalom aleichem? Where is shalom aleichem? Now, by the way, it's very interesting. Although we're going to be Makabel of Pnei Shechina, this is my Purim Torah. My Purim Torah is that since we're going all the way, we're ascending to the moon, so to speak. Our minds go to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We ascend. We take off. We launch to the moon to greet the Shechina. So when on the way back, we have to say Shalom Aleichem. We greet one each other. Oh, welcome back. Shalom Aleichem. But in any case, that's just a nice Purim word. But why do we greet people on Shalom Aleichem? It says at the Kiddush levana. The minhag of saying Shalom Aleichem after Kiddush levana is mentioned in Maseches Sofrim, which is compiled by the Gaonim who lived in the 7th to 11th century. It states that the following Kiddush levana, one should greet friends with Shalom 3 times. Why? So the Maril was known, one of the great German Jews, Poskim, who wrote all the Menhagim, by the way, for the German Jews. It's called Ashkenazi Jews. He says, Rabbi Yaakov ben Moshe Levi Mulin, Yaakov ben Moshe Levi Mulin writes that we greet each other with Shalom Aleichem as expression of joy. We just finished saying, it's such a joyful time that we merited to greet the Shekhinah. We literally merited to greet Hashem's presence. So therefore, it's a time of bracha. Give bracha. When the time of joy, always give someone a bracha. That's why you give a l'chaim. When people are joyful, a joyous time, you give a bracha. The Magen Avraham writes that since we recite the pasuk, Tipoil aleim e masav afachad, which is mentioned in Az Yashir, let fear and terror fall on our enemies. We immediately greet our neighbors with Shalom Aleichem and say, to demonstrate that we wish peace for our fellow Jews. We're not referring to you, to our enemies, not to our fellow friends, our fellow brothers. And Arizal says something beautiful. The Siddur Arizal writes that at the time of creation, the moon was diminished, right? It shrunk because he complained. He says, the sun and I can't rule at one time. So what did Hashem do? Because of a quarrel he had with the sun. So Hashem made him, minimized his shine, his light, while blessing HaKadosh Baruch Hu, while benching HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when seeing the new moon. We wish to show that there's no animosity between any of us, of all Yidden. So there's such beautiful, fascinating things that we just learned today about Kiddush Levana, about the moon. Being joyful, always joyful, at all times. And we all and it's so easy to also greet Hashem. We have an opportunity to greet HaKadosh Baruch Hu every mitzvah with joyous, and always don't forget to give a bracha to others. That's such a nice lesson that we can learn from Kiddush Levana. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much. And by the way, the picture that you see there, Shalom Aleichem, are 2 brothers. They happen to be the 2 brothers the 2 sons of Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, Reb David Yosef, and Reb Moshe Yosef, the youngest son of Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, who always stood on to the right side of his father at the end of his life. And look at that smile of both 2 brothers. But we're all brothers. Shalom Aleichem to all, and a good Chodesh.
Thank you. So what you're saying is really that that Kiddush Levana is both a mitzvah of Ben Adam Lechavero as well as a mitzvah of Ben Adam Lamakom.
That is correct. Beautiful.
It's also together somebody else, which is really what Adar is about too. Right?
That is correct. It's Adar about, and that's what, in essence, what Hashem wants from us.
Correct. Right.
That is in essence what Hashem wants. There's
no difference between the mitzvah.
There's
Ben Adam
no
Lechavero, if you're good Ben Adam Lechavero, you should be also good Ben Adam Lamakom, and vice versa.
That is correct.
Well. Amazing. Thank you, Rabbi Philip. I believe we'll be able to go. I know we're jumping a little bit, but we would like to be able to, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play a song from Kiddush Levana, and let's listen to this. It's a little bit of an oldie, but I think we can enjoy it. Okay.
The Rabbi Yishmael, Don Rabbi Yishmael, the Rabbi Yishmael, the Molad Rabbi Yisrael, Elo lehachbil pnei, Avihem shebar shomayim, Don the Rabbi Yishmael, Don Rabbi Yishmael, the Rabbi Yishmael, the Molad Rabbi Yisrael, Elo lehachbil pnei, Avihem shebar shomayim, Hamachas. Chodesh dayom, Hamachas b'chodesh dayom, Rabbi Yishmol, Tano Rabbi Yishmol, Rabbi Yishmol, Ilmone Lezachu Yisro, Vayela Lehakbil Pnei, Abdihem Sheba Shomayim, Tano Rabbi Yishmol, Tano Rabbi Yishmol, Rabbi Yishmol, Ilmone Lezachu Yisro, Elo Lehakbil Pnei, Abdihem Sheba Shomayim, Tano Rabbi Yishmol,
Hi, once again, my name is Akiva Balter. I'm here with Rabbi Philip. We're about to introduce to you Rabbi Finkel, who's going to teach you, share with you his knowledge of what it means, the Molad of the month. And I'm looking forward, you can see he's in the screen behind me. But before we do that, since we're talking about the moon, I'd like to share with you this video. Rabbi, you're welcome to come to the front and set up. I want to share with you this video. Please, everybody enjoy for a walk back in time. If you do remember it, then better not to maybe admit it.
And we're getting a picture on the TV. Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now.
We could see it as it was happening. We could watch on live television.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
And the fact that 600 million people around the world were either watching or listening on radio and TV as it happened is a measure of the impact that this thing had on the world's consciousness.
The surface, as we said, was fine grained with lots of rocks in it. It took footprints very well, and the footprints stayed in place. The LEM was in good shape and exhibited no damage from the landing or the descent. It's a picture of the ladder with the well-known plaque.
Here, man, from the planet Earth, first step foot upon the moon, July 1969 AD. It came in peace for all mankind.
After the flight of Apollo 11, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and I had an around the world tour, and every place we went, I thought they'd, in some places, have the attitude of, oh, well, you Americans finally did this. Not at all. The attitude, every country, regardless of their internal politics, they all said, we did it, we humans.
Everything before July 20th, 1969, humans only had experience on one planetary body. From that moment on, we were, at least in some measure, a multiplanetary species.
When Neil and Buzz walked on the moon, they did it, of course, without weapons. The only thing they brought was cameras. So it was a peaceful enterprise, and one that was applauded worldwide.
Hi, everybody. I'm here with Rabbi Daniel Finkel. For those that don't know, Rabbi Daniel Finkel has been giving a Daf Yomi Shir for a few decades. Is that correct? A few decades and a half, Baruch Hashem. And you should continue to do that for many more decades. What a daf yomi means, for everybody who doesn't know, means that you learn a blot of Gemara every single day. I want you to think about that, a blot of Gemara every single day. So a few months ago, we learned Maseches Rosh Hashanah that deals with the month, and Rabbi Finkel gave a simple lesson on exactly what happens when we say there is a new moon, when conjunction occurs. So here's Rabbi Finkel. I want the boys to pay full attention to him, and then if you have any questions, there will be time at the end of 12 minutes, 15 minutes. Is that sufficient time?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, boys, thank you for this privilege, and there will be no exam after we're done, so you could rest assured you're okay. In Shul this Shabbos, we announced that the Molad, which will be tomorrow in Mirza Hashem, will be at 307 and 16 Chalakim. And that's a minig in Klal Yisrael for probably well over 1,000 years. What does the Molad mean? Tomorrow in davening, we're going to say, Oso Yerech U'Mayadim Shemesh Yoda Mevoyoy. The sun knows its path. It doesn't change course. The earth goes around the sun year after year, Yodam Mivoyoy. In fact, if you wanted to know when Netzach Hama was, if you wanted to daven Netz today, it doesn't matter if you look at a calendar, January 31st, 2022. It doesn't matter if you look at a calendar from 1869 or 1759. January 31st, Netzach Hama will be the same, 7:37, like it was this morning. And that's because Shemesh Yoda Mevoyoy. But also Yereach U'Mayadim, the moon is not such. The moon changes its course. It's not exact. It's almost exact, but it's not. And that's determined by the Molad. Now, the history of Klal Yisrael was, which is actually the first mitzvah in the Torah in Pashas Boy, Moshe Rabbeinu was shown the moon in Pashas Boy, and Rashi and Bereshis, we all know, once the Torah really asks why the Torah doesn't start from there. Halaylah, Rosh Chodesh. The moon was shown to Moshe Rabbeinu, and the way we're mekadesh the moon is with Riyah, which sing the moon. To Eidim, to witnesses see the moon, they come to Bezdin, and Bezdin proclaims Rosh Chodesh. That's Kiddush Alpi Riyah. That got extremely difficult as times went on. The Mishnayos in Rosh Hashanah tell us, how did everyone find out about it? There was no email, there was no texting. They had shluchim. The shluchim were sabotaged. They had fires. The fires were sabotaged. They ran out of ways of telling people when Rosh Chodesh was. And as Klal Yisrael spread and went into Golus, it became even more and more difficult. Hillel HaKotten, 1700 years ago, decided that we're going to fix the calendar until Mashiach comes. And from then on, we're Mekadesh the Chodesh not al pi Riyah, not through witnesses coming to Bezdin, but al pi the Molad. Al pi knowing exactly when the Molad is, and that's why we announce it by Shabbos Mevorchim. What is the Molad? We spoke before that the earth goes around the sun once a year, a complete revolution around the sun, which takes 365 and a quarter days. Now, while the sun is rotating around, now I hope everyone could see, this is going to be our sun. And this is going to be, can they see that, Kevin?
They can see.
Okay.
They can see the visual.
Yeah, maybe close light. And this is going to be the earth. So the earth takes its trip around the sun. The sun is going to be stationary for our purposes. And that takes an entire year, a complete revolution around the sun. While that's happening, the moon is going around the earth at its own speed as the sun, the earth, revolves around the sun. The moon, which is this hardball, I'm sure you all recognize, this moon rotates around the earth and it takes almost a complete month for it to go completely around the earth. As that happens, when it reaches the point between the sun and the earth, and don't forget, that could happen anywhere in the world, right? Because the sun keeps on going around. January it's here, February it's here, March is here, and the sun is a ball of fire. But at one point, the moon will complete its rotation and it's going to line up between the earth and the sun. And that could happen anywhere on the world. Anywhere, because it depends on where the earth is. The earth rotates as well. At the point that the moon aligns itself between the sun and the earth, that's the Molad. And that's called conjunction in English. And that happens every 29 days and 12 hours and about 40 minutes and some chalakim. Hillel HaKotten knew that some 1,000 years before science figured it out. Rabbi, I remember there were no telescopes, there was no experiments, there is absolutely no way, Rabbi Aaron Feldman, the Yeshiva in Baltimore says, that through science, Chazal could have known this 2,000 years ago. But it was given to Moshe Rabbeinu Misinai that this is a valid way of being Mekadosh the Chodesh, because when Klal Yisrael spread in Golis, we would have Yidden in certain places making Pesach one day, and other cities a different day, because it was impossible to communicate with a Kiddush al Piriya. So Hillel HaKotten in the 4th century saw fit to fix the calendar for eternity, and that's what he did. And that's what it means we announce the Molad. Where does the Molad happen? It could happen anywhere on the world, right? Because the world spins. It spins every 24 hours, one complete spin, besides when it's revolving around the sun. So at the time that the moon finally finishes its monthly journey, this little menshi here is Toronto. The Molad could happen in Toronto, but we call out the Molad in Eretz Yisrael. So if the Molad we called out on Shabbos is 3:07 tomorrow, actually the Molad Toronto time is 8:07 in the morning, because 8:07 in the morning is 3:07 in Yerushalayim. So the Molad happens in one place at one time every single month. Wherever it happens, we call out the Molad in Yerushalayim. And that's the Molad. And we are Mekadosh the Chodesh Alpi the Molad. And that happens month after month. Sometimes it's a few hours this way and a few hours that way, depending on the gravitational pull of the earth to the moon. But the moon takes 29 days, 12 hours, and 40 minutes, and some seconds to complete its revolution around the earth every month. Now, I just would like to answer 2 questions that perhaps will help you understand the way the moon goes around the earth, and it will help you when you're Mekadosh the levana. This Friday night, if the Molad is tomorrow, this Friday night in Mirz Hashem, you'll walk out of shul, perhaps even Thursday night, maybe Wednesday night, but I'm not sure. You're going to look for the moon. You know, sometimes you see people by Kiddush levana, they look for the moon, they don't know which direction to look. I'm going to tell you a secret. Always look west, towards Dufferin Avenue. And you know why? Because if conjunction means that the moon is aligned with the sun, so where the sun is, that's where the moon is going to be. The sun always sets in the west. And if the sun always sets in the west, in the beginning of the month, the moon is in between the earth and the sun. Yes, the moon is moving. From tomorrow afternoon, Tuesday, or in Toronto time, 8:07, the moon is going to move east to continue its journey around the earth. But it's very, very close to the sun. So when you see the new moon, it's going to be always west. So if you see people who are Mekadosh levana looking towards Avenue Road or towards Young, you could tap him on the shoulder and say, turn around. The moon's not going to be there. It may be southwest in the winter towards Eglinton Avenue, And in the summer, where the sun sets northwest, it's going to be northwest towards Finch and Steeles Avenue, depending where you are. But it's always going to be towards Dufferin, towards Kiel. It's always going to be west. Why? Because the moon is so close to the sun. Now, Rabbi say, bear with me for this demonstration for a few more minutes, just to give a taste. And maybe, if there's a taste, maybe Rabbi Kiva would let me continue this a different time. Day and night is created by the rotation of the earth. So, for example, the sun could only shine on half the globe, just like if you have a ball. The light shines on half the ball. The earth is like a ball. So this half is day, Vayerev Vayiboker, the other half of the world is night. Now, this Menchi over here, which I hope you could see this Menchi, is Toronto. When the earth is spinning and the earth comes to this point, that's going to be sunrise. Because the earth is spinning, here it's still dark. But then when we get here, it's 6 o'clock in the morning, 7, 8. And as the earth spins, this is going to be the brightest, it's going to be 12 o'clock in Toronto. Now the moon is right here. It's impossible to see the moon because of the brightness of the sun at 12 o'clock by day. But then in Toronto, it's 1, 2, 3, and it spins. And right here, it's going to be 6 o'clock, right? On a perfect day, because we are moving in Toronto towards sunset. We're going to this side of the sun, which is now dark. The moon is going to pull away because it keeps on moving. It moves 12 degrees a day. It's going to move away from the sun. But the sun is so powerful. You can't see it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 4 o'clock. But at 6 o'clock, when the sun sets, and Toronto is here with this Menchi, I'm not sure if it's on the camera. Okay, when the sun sets, the moon pulled a little bit east. So for a few moments, you could see the reflection on the moon. I don't think tomorrow night, it's too close to the Molad, it's too close to the sun. But as it pulls away from the sun, perhaps Wednesday night or Thursday night, when you go to shul, you'll see the moon. Where will you see the moon? Always west, in the winter southwest. And then you know what? When you leave shul, you may not see the moon anymore. You know why? Because Toronto became 7 o'clock at night. You finish night Seder, it's 8 o'clock. You no longer have visibility to see the moon because you're on the other side of the globe and the moon is here. And as the month goes on, the moon moves further away from the sun. And as that happens, you could see the moon for longer periods of time until finally a full moon, and this will end. Rabbi said, I apologize if it was quick, but this is an encouragement that maybe Rabbi Kiva will allow me to do this again. But a full moon is when the sun is shining on half the moon and it illuminates half the ball. And that's when it's opposite the sun. That's on day 15, when it made half its rotation around the earth. On 15, when you no longer could be Mekadosh levana, that's when we have a full moon. And then as it continues its journey, again, it gets smaller and smaller because it's on there goes our moon, it's on one side of the globe and you can't fully see it as when it's on the 15th. So again, Rabbi say, to sum up, the Molad happens by conjunction. That's when the moon aligns itself. It's over here, Yossi. There. That's when the moon aligns itself between the earth and the sun. That happens every 29 days, 12 hours and 40 minutes. Hillel HaKotan was misaken that for all the generations till Mashiach comes. This way, Klal Yisrael keeps one Pesach, one Sukkot, one Shavuos. All the Yomim Tovim are exact because we had that Kiddush from Hillel HaKotan. It's not the preferred way when the Beis Hamikdash Mitzvah will be rebuilt. The preferred way is Al Piriya. But this way keeps Klal Yisrael united and all our Yomim Tovim, Mekadesh Yisrael v'Hazmanim as one. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi Finkel. I want everybody to unmute. Thank you. I do
Thank
have
you
a
very
question.
much. Thank you.
You're very, very welcome.
Okay, I do have a
Thank you.
question. Why is there,
Thank
if
you.
anybody has a question, I'll
Thank
ask
Thank
the
you.
first one. We have time for 3 questions. If anyone does, I want to know, why is there a yellow moon in the summer and it's on a very, very low sky? And it's usually in the middle of the month, right? It becomes very fiery red at the end and it's on the low horizon.
That probably has to do with the tilt, of the world. And I have 2 answers. I could either say I don't know, or I can make believe I do know and confuse everyone.
I prefer the second one.
Okay. So let's hear the question from the boys.
Right.
Okay. Okay, that's
Anyone has any questions?
Anyone else, any questions? All right, so we're going to thank you again. What about if, does a comet get in the way or something else get in the way between the moon and the earth ever?
Well, what could happen is really a lunar eclipse, which means it could only happen on the 15th day of the month, right? Because the moon doesn't have its own light. It's a reflection of the sun shining on half of the ball of the moon. So only on the 15th, it's possible that the sun is here, the earth is here, and then the moon will disappear because the earth will block the rays of the sun. Any other time of the month, it's impossible because the moon is on the side of the earth, rotating around it, either the east or the west side, but it's never fully blocked. A full lunar eclipse can only happen on the 15th of the month. And in fact, when a lunar eclipse happens, the Beis Yosef rules, which I think Rabbi Yosef spoke about before, I don't know this, you cannot be Mekadosh levana anymore. That's a clear indication that half the month passed. We're no longer in the Molad of the moon, which is the birth of the moon. We're in the waning of the moon, because from that point on, the moon gets smaller and smaller because it's not shining on half the ball anymore. It's on an angle and it's a reflection, what we see, and it gets less and less as it moves along. So that's the only thing I think that could get in the way.
All right, thank you. If we can launch the poll, you remember how to be able to, 1 second, Yehuda Balter, you have a question, go ahead. Or was that from a long time ago? Okay, you have to unmute.
If the moon goes in between the sun and the earth on the first of the month, wouldn't it be that we would only be able to see the moon because the moon is a lot closer?
That's an excellent question. And the answer is, though, the moon is dark. So if you could see this, if it's in between, where is the sun shining? It's shining on the half of the moon that's facing the sun. But the other half of the moon is going to be completely dark, right? Because only half the moon could be lit up at one time, the part that's facing the sun. Look at this ball, thank you, Yossi, right? The hard ball that I'm holding, the part that's facing the sun is very well lit. But the part that's facing the earth is pitch black. So that's why, even though the moon is so much closer to the earth than the sun, but the part that's facing the earth is dark because it doesn't have the sunlight shining on it. Only when the moon moves this way, now you see, you could see a small sliver of the moon on earth because the light could shine on the end of that ball and it's visible from earth. But that's an excellent question. Did I explain it well?
Yes.
Yehuda, are you okay?
Go ahead and launch
Yeah.
I don't know if you see the polls on your screen. Don't. And we will move to it. No, I think it's launched. Yeah. Okay. All right. So if you see the polls, then go ahead and answer the questions. I don't see the questions.
Okay.
Perfect. Excellent. Very nice.
Okay, what I'm gonna do,
If they have questions, they could send you questions
yeah, sure.
and encourage questions. And next week's Chodesh, we can have part two if you like.
So, Yehuda, if you see the poll, could you read the questions for everybody? Who sees the polls, the polling questions?
I just sent my poll in.
What's that?
I just sent my poll in. I finished
Yeah,
it.
me too.
All right, send the polls. Okay, does anybody else see the questions? Ben, do you see the questions?
Armstrong
No.
over there.
Ben, how about reading? the
I don't
questions
see
first?
them.
You don't see them. All right.
Technical difficulties from Gum Zoom Litova.
Yeah, 42% of participants saw it. So once again, we're having technical difficulties, but we will straighten out for the next program. What we'll do now is we're going to go to the wheel of names and have a raffle for book from bagels as well as a
Ryerson University at its finest.
yeah. All right. 50. Right.
I submitted my poll.
Participants have answered it. I don't know why I can't see it, but I can see it.
There's no poll.
I want somebody else to read it. I don't know why. We're going to shuffle the names here. Let me see. Okay, I'm going to write the names here. Everybody who's here, Yehuda Balt, are you here?
Yeah.
You're not here. Zuma boys are not here.
Did you put Kobe Wassel in?
Yeah. Okay, so let me go. Everybody. Okay, one at a time.
Could you put in Alicia Moskoff?
There's no Avi and the Zula boys are not here today.
Oh, there's not that many people. Can you please put in Alicia Moskoff?
Kobe Wassel's here.
Boys are not.
Can you please put in Krakowitz?
Yep.
Thank you.
Can you please also put in Alicia Moskoff or just Moskoff? Can you please put in Yoni Wassa? Yama Philip.
This better be fixed.
Well, it sure is, like everything else.
Wassel with an S.
Okay. A different person. Well, okay, who's not here? Krakowitz, right? What's your first name?
Dovey.
Toby. Okay. So please look at the wheel one more time. Anyone missing? Leave out, is anyone left out? Anyone left out here? Benjamin Rothstein, Kobe Wassel, Yehuda Yaakov Zlotnick, Yehuda Balter, Yehuda Goldrat, Yehuda Krieger, Yehuda Rothstein, Yoni Cohen, Zev Wassel, Misha Moskov, Yoni Wazel, Yehuda Philip, and Dobie Krakowitz. Did I miss anybody for the last time? Shuffle. Okay, we're going to shuffle. Okay, we're going to shuffle.
You're missing Benjamin Rothenstein.
I'm on it.
Oh,
Here it is.
Krakovich.
Dobie Krakowitz, congratulations. Okay, and now we're going in honor of the camera. Look at this. Okay, I'm going to show this to you.
Wasn't even close.
Okay, brand new Rosh Hashanah Gemara from Art Scroll with English in honor of the new month. Okay. Here we go. One more. We're going to shuffle it again. I think everybody has a good chance of winning. Here we go.
Oh, Wassel again? Scam.
Why?
They won also the baseball before and the Boobies Bagel last one.
Hey, Mazel Tov, thank you.
No, end it. Isn't it? Nahura?
No, you-
Okay, we'll see everybody in 2 weeks' time. Hopefully, we'll get all our technical difficulties.
Thank you.
Join us. Shlomi Zayas
Thank you.
will be on. Okay?
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good Chodesh.
Coming from SpaceX. That's right.
Thank you. Thank you.
See you in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Good Chodesh.